Yo, what is up, bros? 2024? The year gaming decided to hit the self-destruct button. Seriously, it's like these companies forgot how to make games that people actually want to play. I mean, we've had some rough years, but this year takes the cake for epic fails and face plants. Remember when games used to be fun? When developers actually cared about making awesome stories and gameplay that didn't make you want to claw your eyes out? Pepperidge Farm remembers. This year, it's all about pushing agendas and appealing to this mythical modern audience that nobody asked for. So, strap yourselves in, bros, because we're about to dive deep into the dumpster fire that was gaming in 2024. Oh, and before I forget, if you enjoy this type of content, make sure to smash that like button harder than a raging Kratos, and subscribe for more epic rants. And now, let's get to the good stuff. First up, we've got Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Remember Prince of Persia? Yeah, the game with the cool time-bending mechanics and the awesome parkour? Well, Ubisoft decided to bring it back from the dead, and guess what? They totally botched it. I mean, the gameplay wasn't terrible. It had its moments. But the story? Ugh, don't even get me started. It's like they took the Prince of Persia we know and love and chucked him into a blender with a generic, forgettable plot. No charm, no personality, just a bland mess. And the worst part? The team behind it got disbanded after it flopped harder than a fish out of water. Talk about adding insult to injury, right? Ubisoft, you had one job. One job to bring back a classic and you screwed it up. Next up on our list of shame, we have the gaming equivalent of a dumpster fire wrapped in a train wreck: Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League. This game was hyped up to be the next big thing, a continuation of the beloved Arkham series, but what we got was a colossal disappointment that left fans reeling. Seriously, this game was so bad, it single-handedly killed the Arkhamverse. R.I.P. Batman. The legacy of the Dark Knight, meticulously built over years, was tarnished in a matter of hours. Fans who had invested so much time and emotion into the Arkham series were left heartbroken. Rocksteady, the geniuses behind the Arkham games, somehow managed to create a game so mind-numbingly boring, so frustratingly glitchy, and so unbelievably out of touch with the source material that it makes me question if they ever even played an Arkham game in their lives. How could the same studio that gave us such masterpieces fall so far from grace? The story was a joke, a convoluted mess that felt more like a bad fan fiction than a legitimate continuation of the Arkham saga. It lacked the depth and intrigue that made the previous game so compelling. The characters were lifeless husks of their former selves, devoid of the charisma and complexity that made them iconic. Harley Quinn, Deadshot, and the rest of the squad felt like mere shadows of their comic book counterparts. And the gameplay was about as fun as a root canal. Repetitive missions, uninspired combat, and a lack of meaningful progression made every moment feel like a chore rather than an adventure. And to top it all off, they had the audacity to charge $200 for this monstrosity. $200! It's as if they were mocking the very fans who had supported them for so long. I could buy a whole new console game for that much. The price tag was an insult, adding financial injury to the emotional damage already inflicted by the game's poor quality. This game was a slap in the face to every Arkham fan out there. It felt like a betrayal, a complete disregard for the community that had been built around the Arkham series. The disappointment was palpable, and the backlash was swift and severe. It's like they took everything we loved about the Arkham games, the gritty atmosphere, the compelling story, the satisfying combat, and threw it all out the window in favor of this. The magic that made the Arkham games special was nowhere to be found, replaced by a hollow shell that failed to capture the essence of what made the series great. The Arkham games were more than just games. They were experiences that resonated deeply with players. They set a standard for superhero games that few have matched. To see that legacy tarnished by such a subpar release is nothing short of tragic. But despite this setback, the Arkham community remains hopeful. Fans continue to create content, share memories, and keep the spirit of the Arkhamverse alive. Here's hoping that one day, we'll see a return to form that does justice to the legacy of Batman and the world Rocksteady once so brilliantly brought to life. Oh boy, where do I even begin with this one? Skull and Bones, the game that was supposed to redefine pirate adventures. The game that took longer to make than the actual Age of Sail. 7 years, brothers. 7 long years of anticipation, speculation, and hope. 7 years of development, countless delays, and what do we get? A game riddled with glitches and bugs that make it almost unplayable at times. A buggy, repetitive mess that makes Sea of Thieves look like a masterpiece. And that's saying something, considering Sea of Thieves had its own rocky start. Remember when Ubisoft promised us a vast, open-world pirate adventure? A game where every decision mattered and every battle was epic? A game where we could sail the seas, plunder treasure, and become the most feared pirate lord the world had ever seen? Yeah, me too. But instead we got this. A game that feels like it was cobbled together at the last minute. A shallow, grindy, and ultimately forgettable experience that feels more like a mobile game than a AAA title. It's almost insulting to think this is what we waited for. I mean, the ship combat is kind of fun, I guess. For about 5 minutes. The initial thrill of firing cannons and maneuvering your ship quickly wears off. And then you realize that you're basically doing the same thing over and over again. Sail to an island, complete a fetch quest, fight some ships, repeat. It's a never-ending cycle of monotony, fight some ships, repeat. There's no real variety or innovation in the missions, it's just the same tasks, recycled endlessly. There's no depth, no real sense of progression, no feeling of accomplishment. Just a hollow experience that leaves you wanting more, just endless grinding for the sake of grinding. It's like the developers forgot what makes a game truly engaging and fun. Instead, they gave us a chore disguised as a game. Remember that time when game developers actually made games without consulting their Twitter feed every 5 seconds? Yeah, me neither. But apparently there was a time when games weren't just vehicles for political messaging and virtue signaling, a simpler time, a better time. And then came Tales of Kirazalo, a game so woke, so determined to shove its message down your throat, that it forgot to be, an actual game. The story was a predictable mess of every woke trope in the book, the characters were about as interesting as a piece of cardboard, and the gameplay was so boring it could cure insomnia. But hey, at least it was woke, right? Wrong. It turns out that gamers don't actually want to be lectured to every time they pick up a controller. Who knew? Certainly not the developers of Tales of Kirazalo, who ended up shutting down their studio after the game tanked harder than the Titanic. Alan Wake 2, the sequel to one of the most atmospheric and genuinely creepy games of all time. What could go wrong, right? Well, as it turns out, pretty much everything. Instead of building on what made the original so great, Remedy decided to throw everything we loved about Alan Wake into a lake and replace it with this. Gone was the eerie atmosphere, the compelling story, and the satisfying combat. In their place, we got a generic, action-heavy shooter that felt more like a Gears of War clone than an Alan Wake game. The story was a convoluted mess, the characters were forgettable, and the gameplay was about as scary as a basket of kittens. It's like they took the first game, flipped the script and said, "Hey, let's make it generic and boring." What were they thinking? Did they even play the first game? It's like they took a perfectly good recipe and decided to add pineapple pizza to it. Just, why? And finally we come to the bottom of the barrel. The games so bad, so forgettable, that even mentioning them feels like a waste of time. I'm talking of course about Concord and Dustborn. Two games that came and went faster than you can say, microtransaction. What were these games about? Who knows? Nobody played them long enough to find out. All we know is that they were both massive flops that resulted in layoffs and studio closures. A fitting end to a truly disastrous year for gaming. But hey, at least we can all take comfort in knowing that we'll never have to suffer through another Concord or Dustborn ever again. Right? Right? So, there you have it, brothers. The gaming industry has seen its fair share of ups and downs, but nothing quite like what we've experienced recently. The gaming graveyard of 2024, a year that will forever be etched in our memories. A year that will forever be remembered for its epic fails, its broken promises, and the sheer frustration it brought to gamers worldwide. Gamers were left disgruntled, disappointed, and disillusioned. The broken consoles and accessories were just the tip of the iceberg, but the question is, why? Why did it all go so wrong? Why are so many games failing these days? Why do we see our favorite characters struggling and our gaming experiences falling short? The answer is simple. Developers have lost their way. In the chaos of development, they've forgotten their roots. They're so busy chasing trends, pushing agendas, and listening to consultants that they've forgotten what makes games fun in the first place. The clutter of trend reports and the overwhelming pressure to conform have clouded their vision. They've forgotten that games are supposed to be an escape, a way to have fun and forget about the real world for a while. Games should transport us to colorful, fantastical worlds where we can smile, laugh, and immerse ourselves in the experience. But hey, maybe there's still hope. Maybe the dawn of a new era is upon us. Maybe, just maybe, 2025 will be different. Perhaps developers will find their spark again. Maybe developers will finally wake up and realize that the key to success isn't pandering to the woke mob or chasing the latest trends. The key to success is simple: make good games. Games that are fun, engaging, and truly immersive. Games that respect the player's time and intelligence, offering meaningful interactions and seamless experiences. Is that really too much to ask? Let's hope the future of gaming brings us back to what we love most.